really bothers me when people imagine that characters that don't look like you or have the same accent as you do are far from you. There's great actress Sybil Thorndike said, I think we all have the germ of every other person inside of us. And I think we do. I mean, I'm not insane. I do know that I'm acting. But you forget about it. Yeah. You kind of, you know, when you're doing it right, there's a thrilling suspension of the day-to-day, and you're in someone else's head. The movie business has worked assiduously to discourage you and other intelligent, discerning people from the theater, from the movie theater. They have worked hard to get rid of you because you don't go then buy toys and games. No one has ever asked an actor, you're playing a strong-minded man. We assume that men are strong-minded or have opinions, but a strong-minded woman is a different animal. I don't like to go over things and over 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 again. I like movies that have little budget, and so they can't do that. I think the acting's better. I think the acting is better than in the classic days, frankly, of movies.
People say, well, how do you do what you do? I mean, it's in all of us. You know, the most fun we had as kids was when we played dress up and pretended, and we could be anything we wanted. They call it a play. They call it a screenplay. You say, I play a role. It's always play. And it's that little kid inside of you, only now you have the best costume designers and the best makeup and the best scripts. And it's all like at a huge heightened reality. That's what I love about it. Warren Beatty saw Vanities, which was a play we did off Broadway, and he told his buddy Dustin Hoffman about me. We were all at Dustin's house. There was a scene where we were supposed to talk through a screen door. I don't know where he got the screen door, but he was holding the screen door in between us, and we did the scene together, and he really liked some of the things that I did, and he cast me in the role right then and there. And I remember saying to him, can I call my mother? You know, is this really happening? And he said, yeah. And I'll always be so fond of Dustin because he's just an actor's actor. He literally took me by the hand and walked me across this empty soundstage and said, that's the camera. And he was totally serious about it. He was so excited, I think, for me as an actor having this first speaking role. I learned so much from him. I had followed his movies. He was so passionate and so excited still to be an actor. I feel so fortunate that that was my first speaking role, working with someone as talented and as committed as Dustin. But the other really cool thing is that they were trying to cast a kid to play our son, and Gary Busey's kid, Jake. They asked him if he would consider doing it, and he was 5. He said he had to think about it. And so the next day, Gary came in with Jake, and he said Jake had said to him, well, I guess acting is like pretending, but making believe like you're not pretending. And we all thought, that's it. That's the bottom line. You know, all the actor classes can just learn this one thing.
The first absolutely vital thing that you have to remember when you're going into an audition, whoever you are, however, whatever age you are, is, and I speak as somebody who has auditioned actors because I directed 6 episodes of Next Generation and done little bits of theater work. You must remember that all the people sitting behind that table want you to be the best thing that's ever walked through that door. They want you to be great. They're already on your side. They want to be blown away by what you do. So cast aside the timidity, the unease, the fear, the insecurity, all those things that can wipe you out in an audition situation. You will never have as great an audience as you have in an audition because they want you to be brilliant. And the next thing is, which is linked to that, is you must be fearless. Take risks. be dangerous if you have to be. Because when actors dig into that boldness and bravery, which we all possess and we can all let loose in different ways, then interesting, unusual, fascinating even things can happen. And that's when someone will say, that's who we want.
They held auditions. It was something that you always did after drama school. And oh dear, it's such an awful thought to even remember. I read, and I thought I was being very advanced, I read a story by James Thurber from the 13 Clocks, and I thought this was frightfully bright. But I was smoking a cigarette, which I also thought was rather cool and would go down rather well. And I put the cigarette down on an ashtray, which was on a grand piano, which was sort of covered in a blanket. I don't think they do that so much now. But it was this great thick blanket. And as I was reading, I saw the cigarette roll off the ashtray, and I saw this thin smoke spiralling up, and I thought, oh my God, just let me get to the end of this page and get out of here. I don't know whether it burnt down or what happened, but I certainly didn't hear from the BBC again.
You literally just got up and left, did you?
I ran. I literally ran. I was so frightened.
You came up very much through review in the 50s.
Yes.
And I think many people these days have forgotten what true review was really all about. I mean, how much of a training ground was it for you?
It was really, really extraordinary because you had to do so many things so fast. I got into it really by accident because I was at Oxford, at a drama school, I hasten to say, not up at Oxford. But I used to work in university reviews. And in fact, we were the first people who went up to Edinburgh and did Fringe. So that's how I got into it, really by accident. I never wanted to. And I was doing a review that was from Edinburgh in London, and a very strange man came round and said, I would like you to go to Broadway. And I really thought it was a joke. I just couldn't believe that was true, but it did turn out to be true. And I ended up there and was desperately unhappy for about a year.
Doing what kind of things on Broadway?
Well, I was doing a review, and I was meant to sing, and I was meant to dance, and I really can't do either. And it was awful. I think I spent most of the time crying. I was discovered in a lift crying by Julie Andrews, who said, oh, do come and have a cup of tea. And she saved my life because I was so miserable.
There was one great review that you're in with Kenneth Williams. What was it, Share My Letters or something like that?
Well, I did that when I came back from America. And I really came back, truthfully, for a holiday because I had never worked in this country, and it seemed to me that America was where I was going to work. And I was suddenly asked to do this review. It was quite a long time ago. Kenneth wasn't quite so far over the top in those days, but he was always very eccentric and very brilliant. We did have a marvellous time, but that was in a review, and then I did a play with Kenneth, and he was a remarkable teacher too, in many ways. It was a play by Peter Schaffer, and I remember Kenneth telling me it was marvellous really because I had a very, very long speech, and I would get to it every night, and all I could see was 3 pages of print. I mean, all I could see was the print, and I would take a breath and think, oh well, here we go, and I'm trying to. And finally Kenneth said to me, I can't think why you're being so boring in that speech. And I said, it's because it just frightens me, Kenneth. I just see all these words. And he said, but you never talk like that. He said, you start a sentence up there, or you start a sentence down there, or you suddenly say, oh, I forgot to tell you that. And he said, why can't you do that? What's wrong with you? Well, goodness, why can't you talk natural? And all this went on. And it was very interesting because I hadn't thought of it as being as simple as that. And in truth, it is quite, well, it isn't simple, but once something is sort of made clear to you like that, it's such an enormous help.
I know that you worked with Dame Edith Evans as well. She also passed on lots of lovely little bits of advice to you, didn't she?
Well, in truth, it wasn't advice to me, but she did say, I mean, I think I know which one you mean, when she said, if you don't understand the line, just make it sound dirty. But she was referring to restoration comedy. And I must say, but she didn't say it to me, she said it to Bill Gaskell, who is the most wonderful director of restoration comedy, and indeed other comedies, but I happen to have done a few with Bill. And it does work, because sometimes the lines are so obscure, but if you just sort of make them sound a little sort of dodgy and move the fan around a bit, it does work.
What do you do when you when you feel like you're not being productive enough? You feel like you're being lazy, or you're fucking off to do fun things instead of putting in the work? Particularly early in my career, I had this where I thought, because I feel like we're raised in this universe where we're like, I need to make the thing, but I really need to market myself.
Yes.
Because if I could just market myself, people will purchase who I am, and then I will be done. I'll be good to go, kind of thing. I'll be discovered, so to speak.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I realized you got to discover yourself. And then you got to just keep creating. And that the creation is the thing that people are drawn to. If you create something that's great, people are really drawn to that thing.
That's so well said. No one cares about you waving your arms.
No.
They don't.
No.
And especially because you can do it. And because you've done it successfully before. And people want more. You know what I mean?
But I think I fall into that trap over and over again, just to a lesser extent with age. But like in my 20s, I was definitely like, I gotta get out there so people can find me. And it's like, no, there is no find you. You just have to create, because that's the thing that people need.
Yeah. It's funny, one can get so caught up in I have to do this, as you're saying, wave my arms but really what you need to be doing is creating more work.
Yeah, I think that's it. And just getting better. I mean, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think you get better every time?
I'd like to think so. I think I get more. Is actually one of my questions for you is like, when you're handing a script to someone for feedback, what's the feedback that's helpful to you?
Alexander Payne gave me great advice. He read my script and sent me a quote that I don't have memorized, but it was basically saying, be more restrained in places where the audience is going to be so with you.
Right.
You can be more restrained than you're writing, which is something
and of course he does so well.
That's why I wanted his notes, because I think he's a master.
Holdovers is a perfect example of that. His movie last year. It's just like so restrained.
Yeah, my problem, to be honest, is as an audience member, I don't always want you to be restrained. I grew up on like musical theater, like,
right.
You know, I saw Les Miserables in like the 80s, and I was like, that was like a formative piece of art for me, which is like the least restrained thing in the world.
Sure.
So
it's opera, basically.
It's opera.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so I've fought in my writing, trying to be restrained, and with the help of people's notes, and of course a great editor, I do pull it back. But people who critique me still will say that I'm pushing it and maudlin and wearing my heart on my sleeve in a bad way. And I understand the criticism, but I also feel like, gosh, that's kind of who I am. Maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to. I need Alexander Payne to like do an editorial pass of my work so he can pull it all back. But also sometimes I fight that and go, but that's not being me. And the audience who does love what I do likes it. My mistake would be like, ooh, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah,
I'm going to put it 3 times in the show now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's something I battle.
Yeah, I get that. I know what you mean. I mean, I think we all battle it.
Any physical confrontation on stage has to be worked out like a ballet so that it can be spontaneous. In other words, just slugging, or just if it gets dangerous or out of control, first of all, the audience senses that they immediately lose reality and say, oh, that actor is hurting that actor. This is an aspect of the whole chapter I have on endowment, endowing something with a reality that it doesn't have through physical actions. And in other words, if I have to have boiling hot coffee and burn myself, I want nice, cool tea or whatever it is on stage, and then I endow it with what it should be, right? The same in a fight. I don't want anything that's going to take control of me or take the scene where it shouldn't go. So, but I want to work on it so that it has sensory reality to me, and then bring it about so that I can believe it and then the audience will believe it. Verbal action. Let me give you an example. If my objective is to make you laugh or to provoke you with a laugh, if I tickle you first and you laugh, I have no need for the words anymore. It's the same with the physicality. The words are already duels. Best beware my sting and a wasp and with my tongue in your tail. The scene works much better if you cut the physical attacks to where they are called for in the script and nowhere else. That you will see that it's much easier. I think the weakest thing right now is also your receiving. You race through it from beginning to end. You are really letting something land so that you need to counter. And you both knew each other rather than discovering each other, testing each other, finding out about each other with your thrusts. Don't know what he's going to see. If you expect something else, how does this take you so that you need to find a counter? Don't go too quickly on tempo. You're going to not find the scene if you do. And I don't mean make deliberate pauses, but really receive before you need to send back and top or undermine or cut or outrage or startle or scare or whatever. And the fun of that when you win, you know? Okay, very good. By the way, I just wanted to say on that 5-minute dictum that I give you is not so I can see a lot of scenes or more scenes or deal with more actors. If you take a scene that's more than 5 minutes, there are exceptions, of course, 6 minutes, 7.5 or something. But the moment you take a scene too long and you have no director, you will intuitively start directing yourself. You say, I can't play this here, I got to save it for there. You start to shape the scene directorially rather than approaching it subjectively and see how much life you can bring into those 5 minutes. That's my reason for it, okay? Give it another whack.